They've been asking a lot about some audio, big Finnish audios I've been doing with Tom Baker, so they all seem to be very excited about the thought of listening to those, which is very nice. Many of them, you meet for the second, third, fourth, fifth times. They are so loyal, these fans. They go to all these things. So it's very nice seeing old faces again that one sees often, and then meeting new ones, and seeing other people from other programmes who you wouldn't normally, and indeed meeting colleagues from Doctor who you've never met except on these sorts of things.
You mentioned the dedication of the fans, and they are so dedicated, aren't they? What is it about Doctor Who you think that really inspires that impressive dedication?
It appeals to such a wide age range, it appeals to such a wide culture range. It's one of those quirky, odd programmes that somehow has managed to survive over time. And I think when things survive that long, it has to be for some reason, and I'm not quite sure what the reason is. I think it's that it's metamorphosed and kept up with the times, both technologically and story-wise and everything else. And I think that somehow maybe appeals to people in some way. I don't really know.
I mean, thinking about your own role in Doctor Who, what was it you enjoyed about being part of that world?
It was very, very clunky in my day technologically. There were no computers. It's weird to think that one is going back to an age before there were computers. And so everything was kind of blue screen backgrounds and very slow and hard, painstaking stuff to make special effects. And some of the things, some of the spaceships honestly came out of cornflakes packets with little wires attached. They were really, really... But I loved all that. I loved learning about the techniques of filming, that sort of thing, which now are completely obsolete, of course. But at the time, they were interesting. It was intriguing talking to the cameramen and talking to the special effects people and learning this stuff. And looking back on it now, of course, it's all very strange compared with what you can so easily do with computers. But, 1979-80, when I was doing it, there were no computers. I had the biggest thrill on earth a couple of years ago, which was to meet over a conference in the Canary Islands, Neil Armstrong. And I got to know him a teeny bit, as far as you could, over those very short few days, and sat next to him on a plane flying between islands in the Canaries. And he said to me, "Do you know that the computer we had for the first moon landing the memory on that computer was 32K. That's a drop in the ocean of any sort of Game Boy machine, or any little the lousiest mobile phone now has trillions more memory than 32K. And when we were doing Doctor Who, we didn't even have 32K. We weren't trying to land on the moon. We were trying to make it look as if we were landing on the moon. But, it was a very bygone time, but I think a very interesting one for that.
Thinking about the kind of look of the show at that time, and your look as well as a character, how much input did you have into how you looked on screen?
Quite a lot. The first story I did was an unmemorable one called The Creature from the Pit, and I wore a dress that might have looked certainly would have looked great on Mary Tam, who was my predecessor, but looked utterly ridiculous on me. I simply couldn't do that sort of glamour. And I didn't know at that stage, because it was my first story, really what I wanted to do. I didn't know what the character was going to be like. I was still kind of half Mary in my head, because I was playing, partly just because I was called Romana still. But now, looking back on it, I think that's the complete anomaly in my costumes. And the minute I got about a third of the way into that story, I thought, no, this is hopeless. I can't do this anymore. So then I did go to people like June Hudson, who was wonderfully amenable. June would come to me and say, "I sort of see you in this kind of Emma Peel type catsuit," and I'd say, "Oh, do you? I see myself in school uniform." And she always said, "Oh, okay, fine, that's a good idea," and we'd change and we'd adapt something quirky and do. I just wanted to wear the sorts of things I thought would amuse children, and I thought school uniform would amuse poor little girls that had to wear school uniform. So yes, I had a lot of input in the sorts of things. Also, I was fearfully practical. I was not bloody well going to wear high-heeled boots that I couldn't move about in horrible quarries in Dorset or somewhere. I was going to wear nice, flat, squashy shoes that I could run in, and try and keep up with Tom. So that was part of it. I thought, I don't know, if people are looking at my feet, then the performance can't be worth watching, so I'm not going to wear high heels, and that's that. So yeah, I had a lot of say.
Now, as you mentioned earlier, there's going to be more Big Finish audio with Tom. What kind of thing can we look forward to with that?
Well, novelty. I've never done anything with Tom for a great many years, since I left the programme in 1980, so they're very good stories, I think, the ones I've done so far. It's very nice to do a reprise of those two characters working together. I've done quite a lot of Big Finish, but I think these are very different, inevitably, because I'm doing them with Tom after all this time, which I hope, I don't know, we'll wait and see.
What's it been like getting into that character, but in audio terms, and joining back with Tom, but just with the voice, as it were?
I love doing audio stuff. I don't find it's so easy to fall back into being the character. Much of the Big Finish stuff I've done, I've moved on as a character, and I'm president of Gallifrey, and everything's a bit different, One of the things I love is being able to work with people I would never normally have worked with. Like, I've done a lot with Louise, Jameson, and Louise and I get on very well. We're incredibly different, but we work together very, very well, and we're great friends, and that's been a real joy working with Louise, whom I'd only ever met before at things like this, at conventions, and never thought that I'd work with. So from that point of view, it's been good. I love audio. You can do so much with your voice, and it's a fantastic team, and we record in the most wonderful studios. Toby, who's the sort of chief engineer there, who runs them, makes lunches that we would all sign up to these audios just to have Toby's lunches, and I'm sure you've been told that before by other people. They are spectacular, and it's a tiny little studio, but it's so well run, and he's so clever, and we all just have a wonderful time. They're very professionally done, very hard work, and very exciting, and just lovely. I love them.
Well, I'm glad to hear they're as enjoyable to make as they are to listen to.
The audio ones are really enjoyable, even in the very good old days of doing the visual stuff, which were tough because, we had so little time. The schedule was so crazy. But they were never not fun. We always had a good time on them, I think. And the audio ones are more relaxed because audio just is.
I mean, of course, we're in the 50th year now, aren't we? The anniversary. What would you like to see happen in the 50th anniversary special? And what do you think of Paul McGann reappearing as the Doctor in the mini episode?
Well, I think it's lovely that Paul's reappearing. I did Shada with Paul for audio, and I think he's an absolutely wonderful actor and a lovely guy. So that's great. I mean, I'm delighted. And asking me what I'd like to see happen, I wouldn't have thought of that. And that's such a good thing to have done, I think. I'm really pleased. I don't know really what one waits to see and be surprised like the rest of the world.
What do you think about the next Doctor, Peter Capaldi? What do you think he'll bring to the role?
Well, I hope possibly not the language he had in the thick of it. I think he is spectacularly clever casting. I think he's an utterly wonderful actor. I can't imagine a more interesting person to play Doctor Who now. I can't wait to see it. I think he's just, I thought he was so brilliant in the thick of it. Utterly, utterly brilliant. It'll be just fascinating to see what he does bring to it.
And what can we look forward to hearing or seeing from you next?
I don't know. I hope I'll have another exhibition soon. I do a lot of work I draw with a sewing machine, so I've just had 3 exhibitions at the National Theatre. I'm plotting another one, but possibly in another country at the moment, so that'll be the next worky type thing, but more immediate will be those Big Finishes.
Very much look forward to that. Thanks so much for talking to us today.
Thank you so much.